all Easy Complete quilt pieces are lined, and so they're going to be sewn inside out and then pulled through one of these beveled edges. Before lining the pieces, it's important to protect the edge you're going to pull the fabric through. In order to do that, I stay stitch one beveled edge, and so I'm going to flip this to the wrong side so you can see what I'm thinking about. So this is wrong side up, and I'm going to stay stitch on this one corner. It doesn't make any difference which one of these beveled edges you choose to stay stitch. What is important is if this is wrong side up, then you have to mirror image. This is wrong side up now too. You have to mirror image your stay stitches on these elongated pieces that are not perfect octagons, because when you go to place the pieces together, it's important to have the stay stitch edge meet. Remember, you only have to stay stitch one of these beveled edges. So I'm going to go do that on all my pieces now. I talked about stay stitching the primrose petals mirror images with their linings. So one corner has been stitched on each of the primrose petals, all on the same side. Then I made a stay stitch as a mirror image on the other piece. So this would be the mirror image. This would be right side and that would be right side. I did make a mistake one time and I sewed this side first. So all I did was go back and sew another row of stay stitching on the other side. Lining the back of an octagon is very similar to lining the back of a hexagon and even a square. You position the back right side up. You lay the right side of the quilter's fleece down with the stay stitched edge so that it matches, and the fusing agent is on the outside. Then you're going to pin along one of the seam lines matching the raw edges. I'm lucky enough to have a walking foot with a 1/4 inch guide on it, so I will tell you I usually sew from this side with the fleece on the bed of my sewing machine, but I'm going to draw where I'm going to sew. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch from this edge. I'm going to use a stitch length that's around 1.8, and I'm going to be sure and back stitch on this side where my stitching meets my stay stitching. I just stitched this seam, and now I'm going to take this edge and pin it so the raw edges match, and go over to my machine and sew this a 1/4 inch from the edge. When I'm done, I'll have these two seams in place. Then I'm going to pin this side so the raw edges match. And then I'm going to go over and sew this seam. Sometimes my cutting isn't perfect and I have to ease. That's fine. So when that's sewn, my piece will have these seams in place. Then I move to this edge and pin it, sewing that seam. When I'm finished, I'll have all of these seams sewn, and then I'm just going to continue around, leaving the edges that are going to become the beveled edges open. They're the ones that are cut on an angle in both the lining and the back. Here are all 4 of the petal backs sewn to their linings. So I'm just going to take out one, and you can see how this is super lumpy, but now it's time to trim just the lining to approximately half of its original width. Leave the back untouched because that will start to unravel. The lining is a non-woven, and so it'll stay intact even when we make it a little narrower. I'm going to finish this up and do all the rest of the pieces, and then I'll turn back on the video. Once all the lining has been trimmed to roughly half its width, you're going to flip this piece to the right side. So this is how I flip it, because there's a lot of fabric to get through this tiny space. I start at the area that's been stay stitched and I begin to turn it. As soon as I get it started, I come down to the part of the fabric that's yet to be turned and I twist it into a tight column, and then I pull the stay stitched edge over top of that column, and that allows me to force a lot of fabric through a small opening and get this turned with as little distortion as possible in that one area where I'm flipping it. As soon as you get all of the fabric tucked inside that opening, you can start to pull it, and it comes through quite easily after that. So I'm almost there. And now I just pull it, and my entire back comes out completely well lined. Once it's turned, flatten it and smooth it, and then that'll put this fusing agent on the inside, so then you can iron it and this will fuse together. After all the pieces have been lined and flipped to the right side, it's time to adhere the fleece to the back. I just have one piece here. That's the octagon shaped piece, or it will be when all the edges are turned and sewn in place. So all I do is try and smooth it so that there's a nice edge on all the sides. In other words, one part doesn't have white all the way to the edge. I'll smooth it back so that there's a nice little tiny border all around. And then I simply press my back and adhere it, activating the fusing agent. Sometimes I kind of smooth the part that's been stay stitched so it's a little bit smaller before I press it.